Here we are. We're live for another episode of the Real Life Game Changers. This is where we are searching the earth to find the people who have changed the game in their field. And I am excited about this one. Yeah. So, first of all, what I'm going to be doing is anybody who is watching live, and we are live, I believe. Just got to figure that out. And yeah, just get a bit of interact. Here we go. Yeah, we are live. So some people will be able to start not to see us. So if you are watching this live, put a hashtag live. If you're watching it on the replay, put a hashtag replay. This will help us understand whether you have any questions that we didn't answer because you didn't watch it live. Yeah. So this is going to be an amazing one, And I'll tell you why. Let me tell you why. Because our special guest today is going to bring us some insights that we kind of don't normally cover where in our podcast and in our episodes. Yeah. So what we're going to be exposed to is a revolutionary fourth generation astrologer and a teacher and a speaker, been recognized in TV magazines for all the great work that she's been doing through her training and her mentoring. So if I was you, I would hit the share button and I would start tagging at least 20 people that you know, so you can give them the choice to have some deeper insights about themselves and discover your cosmic blueprint. I mean, what does that even mean? So I want to hand it over to you, Raquel, because I'm excited to learn myself. I know many other people are going to be excited about this subject as well. So thank you so much for coming on the show. So if you could just give us a highlight, like who is Raquel? What was it like? And you just told me it's quite complex. So give us the highlights of like, who were you growing up? What was it like? And what led you to doing what you do today?
Beautiful. Well, thank you. Thank you, Mark. And thank you, everyone listening, tuning in. My name is Raquel Spring, and I'm a fourth generation astrologer from Brazil. I was born and raised in Brazil and have been living in Sedona, Arizona, in the US for a few years now. But my upbringing was very unusual, actually. I was born and raised in a cult. Yes, in Brazil, but this cult was really big, international, 180 countries of the world. And we were very, 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 very closed. We were not allowed to have contact with the outside world. And so that was my reality growing up from age 0 to age 27. Wow. And it was definitely very intense. We did not have access to movies, to music, to any information from the outside world. And instead, we would live together, 50 to 150 people average at any given time. So that was my upbringing growing up from age 0 to 27. And we always had contact with other members from our cult that were coming and going from other countries. It was very big. There was a whole structure behind it. And that was my reality. That was my world. And so I was raised very differently, and definitely a lot of trauma, a lot of brainwash, a lot of abuse, a lot of intense experiences that, especially for a child, it was a lot. It was a lot. And so that actually led me in my early 20s to want to understand more about human behavior, because I suffered so much in there and it was so intense for me. And I remember thinking often, if I just stay quiet or if I just mind my own business, I'm not going to get, we received a lot of abuse. And so I just tried my best to do everything exactly the way that it was meant to be. And this still happened, and I still received it. And I just didn't understand why people behave the way they did. I grew up as a child with so much pain and so much sadness. I didn't understand why I was there, why God put me there, and what I had done to deserve all of that. So that actually led me to want to understand. I truly, honestly just want to understand human behavior. what leads some people to have this reaction versus another. And so that began a period of several years of just diving deep into many different aspects of human behavior. And in the beginning, I had to do it secret because we were not allowed to have any contact with outside information. So I would just try to get things here or there and try to study in my own time. And one thing led to another. And after many years of getting into many different modalities and systems and metaphysical sciences as well, that eventually led me to finally, at the age of 27, I left the cult. And that was a whole journey in and of itself to forgive, to understand, to recover, and to get myself situated in the other reality now, which was very drastic from the one that I was raised in. And a couple years later, astrology came into my life. And when my father one day walked in the room and saw me looking at a chart, he asked me what it was, and I said, well, it's astrology. We had already left the cult at that point. And then he told me that we come from a long lineage of astrologers. So he never shared that information before because we didn't have access to information from our families, grandparents. It was just what was inside, and that was it. So when my father told me that we actually carry astrology in our lineage, I decided to take that seriously, and it wasn't just one more modality that I was studying. And at that time, I also started to understand astrology as the most fascinating of all the modalities and all the systems that I had ever come across in all my years. I finally found one system that could finally explain everything to me. And that
Wow.
was a massive turning point in my life. I remember, excuse me.
Yeah. So you know what's really interesting about this, and the questions that
Mm,
are already starting to come to me is, first of
mhm.
all, like, does this cult have a name? Is that something you share, or
What? The
the cult?
cult?
Yeah.
Yes, yes. I don't think the cult exists anymore. So if you research it, they're probably disbanded by now, but they began. This is the most famous name that they went by, the Children of God. So if you type up on the internet the Children of God, you're going to find a lot of crazy information about them. When I was born, they changed the name to the family, and that was the name from growing up and until the end. So it was definitely
Interesting.
very controversial. Yes, very controversial.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because, like, some people may never know, like, if there was no sharing with the so-called outside world, but like I want to get further into that as well.
Sure.
Then it's interesting of what people do know, unless they're looking it up on one of these things, but it was obviously may not be available.
Yes.
So, like, what I want to know, and through all your research, is like, how important or how much influence
Mm.
does, like, astrology, the stars, the planets, like, have on human behavior, the moon cycle? Like,
Mm.
how far does it go into
Beautiful.
astrology? What is it, what is it affecting here on planet Earth?
Right, right. Okay. So, yeah, when I came into astrology at first, I didn't really know what to expect. I thought it was one more system to decipher human personality, human behavior. But when I came into astrology, I was so impressed to see that it was much more than that. And later in my years of working with this, I saw that the using astrology to decipher human personality is actually a very recent thing. And it only started in the 1930s. So before that, it was always astrology has been used for thousands and thousands of years, right up along with science and architecture. And it was considered a very fine art where only the big, masters and intelligent people knew how to work with it. And so, because of my background and because of the way that I came into astrology, it wasn't like on the internet, oh, let me see what my sign is and what people are talking about. It was actually a series of very profound experiences and my own spiritual awakening at that point as well that led me to astrology. So when I came into it, I was like, this is a completely different system that I've ever come across. And in that system, I finally found the ability to not only understand human personality. I mean, that's just a starting basic point, but to understand the entirety of that person's experience. And so when I say entirety, I mean the intellectual, the emotional, and most importantly, the spiritual, which this is what I call today is the higher intention of the soul. Because when I started to understand my own chart and I started to see and finally understand why I had gone through everything and what it was preparing me for and the reason for all that, I went through a big dilemma with free will. Well, then if everything has already been pretty much mapped out for me, then where does free will come in? So that was a whole other process that I went through. But eventually I understood that there is a higher coordination and there is a synchronicity with the cosmic clock. And everything is interconnected because at the end of the day, we are one, as you may have already heard. But we go through different cycles and patterns living here in this dimension so we can go through our evolution. So when I was able to understand all that and see that we're not just our personality is a tool that we chose to come with. The events in our life, the family we're born to, everything is exactly perfect and strategic according to the greater purpose of the soul. So that became my fascination was when, well, okay, well then beyond the personality, what is the soul up to? What is the intention of the soul? And that led me to develop the very unique ability that I have today to look at charts and interpret the totality of the message in the chart, not just the personality, but
And how,
understanding
and
with
what's
the
interesting,
great cycles.
yeah, I wonder what to ask is like, what, so based on the like chart readings and this understanding, like what, how can people use this to benefit their life? And like you already mentioned, like where does free will come into it then if something is already planned out? I just want to ask the questions that I know people are thinking.
Yeah. It's a big one. I know. I struggled with that for about a year and a half. I was so angry. So angry when I just started to see things in my chart that were already laid out for me. And I went through my own crisis at that moment of I can't even use the system if I don't understand like what is happening with what is free will? Where till what point do we have a say in things, you know? So I'm going to start off by saying that we do have free will, okay? We do have free will, but it's not in the way that people think. And it's not like we have free will, period, because we are connected with something much greater. So, the way that I understand it today, and based out of all these years of work and research and, battling with my own, just trying to get a grasp of all of this, today, the way I see it is that the soul comes into this planet with an intention. So within that intention, it creates certain parameters. For example, the country you're born, the parents you're born, the overall um, the overall energy, if you will, of your trajectory. So within that, there are certain landmarks that are in place, and they can't be changed, okay? So you have the whole design, you have the full intention, and within that intention, you have certain landmarks to make sure that you stay on track. Now, within that, that's where we have free will to how we're going to get to those landmarks. And this is where we, as humans here in this experience, we get to pick and choose how fast or how short of a distance we create between the landmarks. And also, obviously we can say, no, I don't want to do this, but there are going to be consequences. And further down the line, there will be adjustments that will come in as well to just kind of swerve us back into that aha moment. And this is a lot of where, not all, but a lot of the chaos comes in as well. The chaos in our lives, the trauma, the events that just kind of bring us back to that reality check to keep us in line with the overall trajectory that the soul has set in motion for us.
So do people go through life? I don't know, like this. People go through life and maybe don't ever connect the dots.
What do you mean?
So like you say, there's these landmarks, there's these parameters. There was a
Yeah,
specific intention. Because
yeah.
of free will and making decisions. Maybe it's not like they just don't get there in this lifetime. So maybe they got to come
Yes,
back.
yes, that happens. That happens. But that's why the work I do is so profound, because my objective is to help people align with their soul's intention. And I was just saying to a friend yesterday, we were talking about this. After all these years of working with astrology, I've seen every scenario you could possibly imagine. I've even worked with forensic cases. I've been hired to work with helping, you know, find certain people, certain individuals, and understand more about the dynamic that's happening in their life. And I will tell you, every single time I've just been so humbled by looking at the greater design, because this is not even about just good or bad. This is literally about what the intention of the soul is. And is that individual following that trajectory? Now, this is not to justify evil at all, but even evil has its own trajectory and its own purpose together with the good of the world. And together that creates evolution. So
Mm,
that's another extensive topic, very extensive. But eventually, I saw that this is beyond me. This is beyond telling people you should do this, you should do that. No, so today I receive everybody that comes to me with an open heart, with so much love and compassion for their journey. And I use my gifts to help them understand the greater picture, the greater design for their soul, and keep them in accordance to the intention of the soul. So then I help them not only understand who they are and what they're doing here, but to follow the moments of opportunities to continue this grand design. And always coming to evolution, always coming to the expansiveness of the heart, right? And the awareness as well. It's not just the heart, because a heart
mm,
heart without awareness is ignorance.
mm,
So they need to go hand in hand.
mm.
And so with my work, I just help people align with the totality of their blueprint, why they're here for, and so forth. So
Good. Yeah, so we've got some questions coming in, and I'm super excited to ask questions myself as well. So you talk about, you do this work because it helps people get aligned, right? So like, how quickly, like, can you skip many levels in one lifetime?
yes and no. There has to be a predisposition, if you will, by the soul, from the soul prior to that. So this is certain souls, they have been already progressing in preparation to be able to have this quick advancement. Other souls are just not capable yet. So again, there is no good or bad. It just really is about, where are you at right now? What is your soul ready for? So yes and no, because there needs to be a certain foundation. And you can maybe see this in the world today, how when you talk to certain individuals, they're just not even in the capacity to understand what you're saying. And it's
Mm,
not even necessarily that they're, lost cases and just let's just forget about them. They're just not there yet. This is where compassion comes in. It doesn't mean you need to be in that reality or associate themselves with that. This is where wisdom and awareness comes in. And then you set your boundaries. But this is how you can observe different people in the world that are at different levels of capacity to understand and receive their evolution. But anybody, regardless of where they're at, anybody at all can, if they make a conscious choice to, they can definitely accelerate their evolution quite quickly.
mm. And like, we talk about the preciseness, and I've had many profound experiences myself, and sometimes I pick and choose where and who to talk to these things about, but I think this is the right place and the right time. I'm a massive believer of like the universe, and I sent myself here, and I sent you here to send me a message, and vice versa, and all of that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So here's one thing, and I want to get to these questions because there's quite a few coming through. But one thing is, I had a charity event here at the weekend, yeah, and I was the favorite to win this tennis tournament, but I actually didn't. And it was windy, yeah, and I had some massive lessons from this thing. And at one time, it was so windy that like I was like, okay, I'm ready. So I was going to hit the ball really hard because I know it would hold up in the wind and still land in. And literally on contact, the wind stopped. Yeah, okay. So
Mm.
one time that could be like, okay, just unlucky mistiming or whatever. So then another time, there was no wind. Yeah. So then I hit it a bit softer because I wanted to like just drop it over the net. And then all of a sudden, as soon as I hit the ball, the wind came. And I'm just like, I clicked and I was like, okay, why did it do that? But only after thinking about it the day after, I thought there must be a reason. And I realized what the reason is. But, and it's because I was supposed to lose because I learned a bigger lesson. So, like, my question to you is before we go to these other questions, is that how precise it can be? And like literally, if the universe wants to teach you something or get me on alignment or help me realize something, it can be as literally like what I just described? Or am I just crazy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is where free will only goes to a certain extent. Because we can, for example, you could have prepared for that moment for so long. You could have given it your all, done everything exactly the way you were supposed to, and still it didn't happen. You can apply the same for a relationship where you give it your all and you're just showing up for the relationship. But if the relationship has come to an end, as per your greater evolutionary cycles, then it's something that we have to come to terms with, that there is something beyond us and we surrender to that. Now, this is not the case with everything in our life because, like I said, we do have free will. And so this is where it becomes really interesting because those moments where you just know in your heart, I showed up for the experience, I gave it my all, I prepared for this moment, and still, right? And still, this happened this way. What I like to call these spiritual interventions. So, yes, there are moments where we have these spiritual interventions that do come in through our angels or guides or however you want to connect with it and describe it. I just go straight to the source, which is our higher self. But you can look at it as God, you can look at it as angels, and we have these occasional pivotal points in our life, occasional pivotal points that come through as spiritual intervention when we need to have that swerve into another track.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And to realize something. So like I've been picking up on things for many years with all the work I do on myself and self development and everything. But like I believe this one was a very instant feedback of like how does the wind blow at exactly that precise moment? And I didn't get it at the time because I was still in the game, but I got it afterwards. So that's really cool. So guys, please, who is watching, put hashtag live if you're watching it live, put hashtag replay if you're watching it on the replay. Hit the share button, let us know you've shared it so we can give you a shout out, and also tag at least 20 people. Let's get this information or at least bring this into people's awareness. We're not going to have a full study session of what astrology is and all of that, but let's give us insights that there are other tools, there's other things, and there's people out here who can help us on our way. So let's look at this question. So John is asking, is there a way to recognize what the landmarks are? And then he's saying so far in our life, for example, like, is there a way to?
Yes. That's the beauty of astrology, and that's what I help people understand where their landmarks are at. And astrology, I always say, astrology is not a tool for prediction. It's not going to give you a linear 1, 2, 3, this is what's going to happen in your week or in your year, or if you are a Sagittarius sun, then this is what you can expect. It doesn't work that way. Astrology is a combination of different energies that come together. So my my focus with astrology is to help you identify, first of all, what the overall message is, and then we go through the landmarks. We go through the pivotal moments of endings, beginnings, closings, why they are happening, what they are intertwining with, and what they're preparing you for next. And within that, looking at the landmarks, looking at the future, if you will, and all those things, we are always going to be working with probabilities within the context of the landmark, because the landmark is not necessarily a black and white, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. It's a possibility. For example, let's say a relationship. Someone is ready astrologically, cosmically, on a soul level. They are ready to meet someone. They're ready to open up this window, where I personally call the soulmate window. And it could be this person, it could be that person. Okay, I don't get into details. We look at the possibilities. You are approaching a landmark for a significant person to come into your life. Now let's look at what that could mean. It could be someone to teach you lessons. It could be someone to form a family. It could be any type of scenario. So we explore the possibilities of what this opening that you're coming into, this landmark of love and soul connection, is about. So that's the beauty of astrology. There is no black and white, because that's where we have free will. This is where we as humans, we get to decide how we use this window, in this case for relationships and love. But my focus is to help you identify the landmarks and then prepare you with the highest probabilities that are aligned with your soul, so you can maximize that event. You can go in it in full awareness, and also know the dates and know the stops, know everything about the, how to navigate that time.
Super interesting. Thank you. Yeah, so John, let us know if
Mm-hmm.
that's answered your question. We've got another question from Kenny here. He's saying, what can we do to make this reality better for us? And what happens if you've been, I think is what he's saying, is what happens if you've been off alignment for a long time? Can this be fixed?
Absolutely. Even being out of alignment is part of the process. And I will tell you that right now in the world, we're all at a very, very, very critical point, collectively and individually as well. I use astrology also to help understand the global trajectory and what's happening collectively. So part of the work that I've been doing right now with my videos and my community, and just all the work that I offer, it revolves around understanding the dynamics of the world right now. And we are at a, cosmically speaking and astrologically speaking, because not everybody's going to see it this way if they're not ready. But when I look at the astrology, this is the message. We are all at a point of no return right now. And what's happening is that we have reached this apex point of our evolution, which means that we don't need to, if we choose not to, we don't need to anymore continue the recycling pattern that we have been for thousands of years. This has been part of the evolutionary process. As we come back as the parent, as the child, as the lover, and we just keep recycling the same people over and over again. We keep recycling the same themes, because it's been a slow process for us as humans to evolve and to finally come into the other side. Okay, now we're ready for this aspect of life. And we are
Mm,
at that point now where we are ready for a new aspect of life. And this is where you may have heard the term age of Aquarius come in. And this is
mm,
what we're getting ready for next, which is going to be a brand new reality, physically, emotionally, spiritually. So right now, what we're doing is we are transitioning from the need to recycle and karma as well. And a lot goes into that, but essentially, especially these months right now, July, August, September, um, the rest of the year for sure, but especially these months, we are all being pushed and squeezed and pushed, and this is non-negotiable, to look at our shadow. And this has been a huge part of my work. We cannot deny it anymore. So many people right now are finally coming to terms and recognizing the patterns they are done with, and they are ready for that quantum leap. This is going to influence health, lifestyle, choices around relationships, work moving forward. And this is why there is so much of the release that's happening right now, which can be very painful. But on the other hand, this is where we are finally laying to rest, if you will, the
Is this
old and having to repeat it over and over again with those same people. So that's why we're saying goodbye to many relationships, different aspects of our life and work, and starting to find that desire to now take that next quantum leap in our life.
good? And is this in line with, some people are talking about like a double dimensional shift from the 3D to the 50? Is that along the lines of this?
Essentially, yes. I don't necessarily see it that way. I know a lot of people are talking about, you may have heard the term ascension very frequently out there. And, I live in Sedona where it's just everybody is a spiritual person and everybody has something going on with the spiritual community. So I hear that word a lot. And what I say, astrology keeps me very grounded and very like, okay, let's not get too sidetracked here. And even the word ascension can be taken a little bit out of context because it can feel like that utopia scenario where we just all of a sudden zap into a new reality. And that's not quite necessarily the case. What I tell people, my community especially, is that to me, ascension really means awareness. We are bringing in a new stage of awareness, the way that we are going to see life, see reality, see each other. And based on that, we're going to start recreating our human physical experience. But to me personally, what I say is that more than ascension, I'm here for embodiment. I'm here
Mm,
for embodiment because this is not about going into another dimension as a place or all of a sudden transforming this into this ethereal life. The ethereal life happens in here, in this body. And it's from this place that we can then extend our words, our actions into the world and start to together recreate our experiences. So,
yeah.
yes
Uh,
and no, ascension is a very real thing, but not necessarily the way people think of it. We still
yeah.
have a lot to go through. We still have technology that's going to be advancing and AI and so much coming in. So, this is not about all of a sudden finding ourselves in heaven or finding ourselves with angels. And no, this is where are we going next as humanity? And are we mature enough to handle it? What are we
Yeah.
going to do with all of this coming in? So that's where ascension and awareness comes into the picture.
Yeah, for sure. And I myself, I grew up on a council estate, with low, if we talk in form of vibration, very low vibration. And, I've been on a journey myself and had, open heart surgery when I was 11 years old.
Mm,
So I had this near death, experience and all of this stuff. And I feel myself, and this is only my experience, that my body has evolved. And actually, they kind of tell us as you get older, you get, weaker and this and that. I've actually found myself getting more fit, healthier,
yes.
stronger, faster. And I can only put it down to the way that, my diet has changed. I don't drink alcohol anymore. I took a lot of drugs in my 20s. I don't do any of that anymore. I feel I've done a lot of things to cleanse that and get that out of my body because I did research and understood that, well, even though I'm not doing it anymore, it's still there. So I've got to get out, got to purge it, got to get out, got to get it out of me, so to say. So so I understand, and people are using different terms, right? But let's face it, like the linguistic representation is never precise or exact. It can only put us in the vicinity anyway. That's one of my mentors, said this to me, and I was like, wow, this is actually, true. Right,
Mm-hmm.
so it can only put us in the area of it, but also a lot of the technology, I think, including these things and what we're using right now, has stopped people practicing these psychic abilities, telepathic abilities, because why would you need it? You don't need it. You can just pick up the phone and call somebody.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to trust your intuition anymore. And in fact, if anything, society would steer you away from trusting your intuition and play other games with the virtual reality and how people are guided. But as you probably know, that's another episode all in itself. So one thing I want to ask, because I'm just checking, I think there's a couple of questions coming through here, is, with the stars, yeah, the stars and astrology, planets, especially what I was taught, growing up with, the sun, and we orbit the sun and all this stuff. what are your beliefs, or what is your understanding around, like, is the Earth really round, or is it flat,
Hmm.
or in like the very, and if so, and we were moving through the universe, why are the stars always the same? Like, what's your understanding around that?
Yeah, I don't usually discuss I think it's a matter of perspective, earth round, earth flat. Believe whatever you want. I believe it to be round, but I'm going to leave it at that. I feel like we go through these cycles of trying to decipher and understand what gravity is or what energy is and all these things, and this is just a little patch here of like discussing whether the earth is flat or round. But what I do want to address, Mark, is what you were talking about, the technology and feeling healthier and better, because this is a natural part of our evolution moving next into the age of Aquarius, and especially due to the fact that we don't need to recycle anymore and the whole karmic experience. From this point forward, we're going to be entering a new reality where our bodies are designed to live much longer for sure. And so this is literally where we're heading next. And this is going to be an evolutionary process of a few hundred and maybe even a few thousand years in the future. But this is why we are feeling the need to discover longevity, or just get more into extending our life. And this is what we're getting ready for as well. So because we don't need to anymore have that our life cut short to come back and recycle and the whole thing. So it is a
Mm,
very real thing of preparing ourselves. This is why I love the energy and the concept of embodiment even more than ascension. This is literally about bringing spirit into this body, and what does it look like in this new reality. So,
mm. So we have got a few more questions, and what I would like to ask is, can we quick fire them? We want to like quick fire answers so we can get at least some insight or some direction
mm,
on that. 'Cause I know obviously you could go in real massive depths here. So somebody is asking, Linda is asking, is our life already predestined?
yes and no. I think I covered that in the beginning within the context of free will.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Cool. Good. And then what else we got going on down here? Yeah. So can we break this cycle? So I think Kenny is referring to something you were talking about earlier. So can we break this cycle? And what happens if you reach enlightenment in this life?
What was the question? Break the cycle of enlightenment?
No. So like because I think you were talking about something before about things happening in cycles. So it's like and being off track or something like that. And he's saying, can you break that cycle of I think you were talking about that, like the karmic cycle when he asked this question. Yeah. So, can you break that cycle? And what happens if you reach enlightenment in this lifetime?
Yeah. I think it goes along also. I think I covered this a little bit before with there has to be a certain preparation and predisposition to be ready for enlightenment. So you can't just go from A to Z. This is why people have been reincarnating for a long time, is to prepare for that stage. And the previous masters have led the way and showed us what is possible. So at this stage, there is a lot of people on the planet that are ready for enlightenment. This is why it's just become so big and so mainstream. So the people that are ready, absolutely. And I also don't necessarily see enlightenment as a destination. So enlightenment can feel like or look like different things for different people. So my response is yes, there is always a next step for enlightenment that you are ready to experience.
Beautiful. I like that. Yeah, I like that. What else we got going on here? So John is asking, like, what do you mean by meet my shadow? I know you mentioned that before. It's time for people
That's
to
a
meet.
big topic. That's a very big topic. Most of my work comprises around helping people understand what is the shadow. And essentially, it's just about not to fear it, because it's another aspect of you. And the only way that you're going to overcome it is by integrating with it. So that is a definite process. But I will keep it short, and there's many directions we can go with this. But one way is to be willing to recognize your pain, your your actions around that pain, whether they've been to put up guards and walls or be defensive or act a certain way due to your childhood trauma or so forth. We have different levels of shadow. And a big aspect of the shadow right now that I'm helping people with is to understand the quality of their life, the things that they would consider shadow, pain, suffering, and just the unwanted that we want to change so much. So that's what I mean by shadow.
Nice. Yeah, we like it. So this has been so amazing, and I think wow, this could go so deep, goes in so many different directions.
Yeah.
Like, if people want to know more, or they want to work with you, or they want to study with you, like, where can they reach out?
Yes, absolutely. So I was mentioning to Mark that I am taking a little break from social media. Otherwise, I would say you could find me there as well, and you can, but I'm not there right now. So the best place is my website, www.raquelspring, which is my name, and that's not a Raquel Springs. It's just Raquel Spring. Okay, www.raquelspring.com. In there, I have many different levels of service, all the way from the free updates that I offer through my newsletter, which you can sign up for. I also offer one-on-one sessions so we can take a deep dive with your blueprint and all the things we discussed. And then I also have a school where I teach people that are interested in learning how to do this in this way. That's where I do it, and it's all on the website. And if you go in the contact form or even to sign up for a session with me, it goes straight into my email box as well. So that's another way of reaching out and connecting with me. It's all on my website.
Beautiful, fantastic. So I always have two questions that I like to ask every guest and get the insight here. So the first question is like I mean, you've talked about so many different things. People, meeting their shadow, integrating. You've talked about traumas. You talked about alignment, even misalignment is part of the path, and all of these things. If you had like a microphone right now that translates to every different language there is across the planet, and you had like 30 seconds to give a message, like what would that message be for people?
Mm. There's no turning back. That would be my message. There's no turning back to the old. We're literally opening the door to a brand new reality. We're going to start to see the very, very, very first signs of this come in next year. We're still not there yet. So this is about surrendering to the process, releasing control, and allowing things to go that are ready to go. And with humility and compassion, allowing ourselves to see what we are ready to see, because we're not taking the old anymore into the new. And the only way that we're going to make it to the future and this new reality that we're embarking is by allowing this process to occur. Make peace with the shadow, make peace with everything that has been and is, so that we can be ready to embrace the brand new that is right there waiting for us.
Wow, that is incredible. Well,
Mm.
thank you for that. And I want to thank you before I ask you my last question. I want to thank you for coming onto this show, giving us the insights. It's literally
Thank
been
you.
surface level. I get it. But I can already kind of feel the cogs turning in people's minds of like, whoa, they've
Yeah.
been opened up to something new, another insight, another tool for helping them on their journey. So we have a saying. Here's the question. Yeah, we have a saying in our community that you got to do the right thing for the right reason. Now, why is that?
Hmm. I'm not too familiar with that phrase. Maybe because in Brazil, I mean, they don't grow up with that, but I am not even sure exactly. Do the right thing for the right reason.
Mm.
How would you describe that so I can respond to that?
Yeah, I mean that's all. We make decisions based on that. I do that in my business. I do that in my
Yeah.
life. I always ask myself, like, is this the right thing, and is it for the right reason? Because plenty of times in my life, I didn't do
Okay.
the
I think
right
I
thing
get
for the
it. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So, from what I understand, I feel like this is where astrology also comes in very, very handy to help you understand what the right reason is. Because we can think we know what the right reason is. It could be something of the standards of society or the standards of the government or laws, but that doesn't matter when it comes to the soul. So that's where astrology really helps us to understand what the right reason is, and then to make our decisions based on that. And it's not about ignoring as well the wrong choices that we did, because those are also the landmarks that we needed to be in place to be where we are today, including with the ability to see the right reason. So everything is perfect, and astrology helps us understand all of the wrong choices and what the overall intention of that was, and then helps you align you with the right reason, the higher intention of the soul.
That is magnificent. I love the answer, and that's why I always ask the question, because people always come from different angles and have different insights. Yeah, so thank you.
Right, yeah.
But thank
I
you
hope
once
I
again.
helped to explain. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, big, beautiful insights here. So, thank you for again coming on the show. I'm sure we can do much more, go much deeper. I'm sure some people are going to be reaching out to you, because I can already
Yes.
see their level of interest here. But yeah, I just want to say thank you to you, and thank you for everybody watching. And as Raquel said, you do got to do the right thing for the right reason. And as people know in our community, we say that because we understand that's the only way that we discover our true potential.
Yes. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.